G'day guys, Socket here. Today's viewer's question comes from Henri1187, who dropped down a comment about the REW EQ tutorial part 1. And this was a tutorial where we were looking at the theory of EQ, the different types of electronic filters that you could use, how to use REW to sort of simulate different crossovers and things before you put them into your DSP, all of that type of stuff, all around EQing your speakers. But Henri makes some really good points in his comments where he talks about measurement levels versus target levels, and how big cuts of EQ can affect the dynamic range of your speakers, and he makes some really good points. Now, while I touched on some of those topics in the tutorial, it certainly wasn't a focus, and so I thought I would make a viewer's question just to touch on these topics and dive into a little more detail. So let's jump on in. Okay, so the first topic I'd like to talk about is measurement levels. And this is something that I should make a tutorial on, because I've had a couple of questions around this, and the main question is, well, what measurement level should I be measuring at? And the answer to that is basically a little bit louder than you would normally listen to in your car. And the reason for this is, let's imagine that you are taking some measurements and you've got it turned down to about 2/3 of your normal listening level. What that would mean is when you finish your tune, it's going to be much quieter than you would normally listen to, and you'd always be having to crank up your volume knob to get it to a level that you enjoy. So you don't want to be doing that. You want to tune your system so that when it's tuned, you're at a place where you've got plenty of room to be able to turn it up and turn it down, but still have it set at a point that you would normally enjoy listening to. And so for most people, that's going to be a measurement level of about 75 or 80, maybe even 90 dB, depending on your personal preference, right? Somewhere up here in this range. And on most head units or things like that, the volume is going to be somewhere between 2/3 and maybe 3/4 of maximum volume. Now, some people have come back and they've turned their volume all the way up to 100%, and wondering why they're getting some funny measurements. And the answer to that is, most head units, when you get right up into 95 or 100% of maximum volume, they will clip and distort, and things like that. So they're not really designed to be played flat out. So you certainly don't want to be tuning with your volume turned up way, way, way high. So that is the layman's way of describing where to put your measurement level. But if you want to look at it from a more technical or scientific point of view, we need to pop over here into the distortion tab. So the distortion tab is only useful if you're taking your measures using an analog mic sweep and you have phase and impulse information. This won't be available if you're just doing moving mic measures using pink noise, okay, with the USB mic. But if you have this information, this is another way to check to see whether your measurement levels are correct. So basically, this is what we call the noise floor. So this is the background noise that your microphone will be picking up. And so, at the moment you can see here the noise floor is, around about 0 dB, which is great. And then if you click on fundamental, it will show you the, your measurement. And so this is a measurement of the left tweeter. And the level that we've taken the measurement at is about 50 versus a noise floor of about 0. And the rule of thumb is you want your noise floor to signal ratio to be in the range of ideally 60 dB or more if you can get it, but certainly you don't want it down where the signal is being sort of buried in the noise floor. So certainly this signal could probably go up another 5, maybe 10 dB to get it to the 60 point. If we have a look at another couple of measures here, this is the right mid, It's been measured at about 63 and the noise floor is about 11. So, once again, that could probably go up another 5 or 10 dB to get it, ideally to that minimum of 60. And last, if I look at the front sub over here, that's maybe 58 versus 0. So, when you look at all of your speakers together and against this sort of metric, then you would probably lift your measurement level a little bit to get it closer to that 60. So that's one way of checking to see whether you've got your measurement level set high enough. Right. The last point I just want to make about measurement levels is to do with the how level affects the frequency response of the speaker. So looking at this one here, we'll use this as an example. We can see the noise floor down here and the measurement up here at what's that, 50.6 or something, and we're using the left tweeter. So just have a look at the shape of the speaker, and we'll go back into all SPL, select the left tweeter, and we will add on some left tweeter. Let's add on some extra gain, right? So I'm going to add on 20 dB, right? So I'll add that, and we'll go back into distortion, and you will see that it's jumped up now from 50 up to 70 odd. But you'll notice that the shape of the frequency hasn't changed. All it's done is moved up further out of the noise floor. And the same thing, I can go back and where are we? SPL. We can go back and into the measurement actions, take off the 20 that we added, and then let's say take off another 15 for argument's sake. Okay, and we'll go back into the distortion, and once again you can see that the level has now gone from 50 down to 30, and it's closer to the noise floor, but the shape of the frequency hasn't changed. So the takeaway is that adding gain to your speakers will change its relationship to the noise floor, but won't change or won't affect the frequency response of your speakers. So the next thing I'd just like to talk about is this SPL scale on your axis over here. So if I was looking at this now, I'd say, okay, well that was a measurement. This is playing at 64 dB, and this one's playing at 60 dB, and that would be true if you have calibrated your microphone using the SPL meter tool in REW. So the way that this thing works, and it's something that I should include in the upcoming measurement tutorial, but basically it is a tool where you can select a signal, so an REW generated or an external signal, and you can have a sound level meter in, if you're lucky enough to have one, a standalone one, or you can download a sound level app on your phone, and you basically put the your sound level meter or your phone next to your measurement mic, play the signal, the sound level meter or your app will come up with whatever the sound pressure level is from the test signal, and then you would punch that into here. So let's say the app said it was 74.6 decibels. I would punch that into there, and then my measurement microphone would be calibrated correctly to be recording the correct sound pressure level. And as a result, the REW would be calibrated, and then this scale would be correct. So as I said, something I should put into a measurement tutorial, but most people don't calibrate their microphones before taking their measurements, and therefore if you're online or on the forums or something and you're looking at people's measurements, just keep that in mind, that this scale is not 100% accurate unless you've calibrated your mic. So the next topic I'd like to talk about is target setting. where to set your target level for your EQ work. And I've covered this pretty much in depth when we did level matching and crossover setting tutorials. But Henri makes a good point. If you cut 15, 16, 20 dB out of your speakers, you're going to affect their dynamic response, and he is absolutely right. So setting target levels is, when you do it, you want to try to minimize the amount of cutting that you're doing, so you're not losing a lot of your speaker response or volume. But at the same time, you want to you don't want to sort of leave yourself with massive problem areas to try to deal with, or you're going to leave holes in the response of your tune when you finish all your tuning work. So setting the right target level is about finding the right compromise, like many things in car audio, between your, in this case, preserving speaker response and dealing with problems that you're having to solve. And so, for example, you probably wouldn't set your target up here at 60, and you probably wouldn't set it down here at 43. It's going to be somewhere in the middle where you get a good trade-off between the two. But it's not an exact science. It's probably more art than science, to be honest, because you need to take into account a number of factors when making that judgment call. And so let me use the worst of all of these speakers. If you look at this red bumpy one's got these huge dips in the middle of it all. And let's have a look at that in the EQ window so we can take a closer look. So here is that response. Here is the house curve that we've created with a target line of 50. Now, one of the ways to work out where you should set your target line is to let REW calculate it. So you can click on the target level from response button here under target settings, and REW will tell you that the target level should be 55.1. That is where REW has decided this is the line of best fit. But I can look at that and say to myself, well, that's fine, I can EQ all of that out, but I will be left with a big hole in my response at 490 and another big hole in my response at 163. So I'm going to have a gap in the vocals, and that type of thing, and I really don't want that in my system. I also kind of know that very narrow dips are likely to be a cancellation, and because of my system, my mids are mounted in the corners of the dashboard, and the sound waves are reflecting up off the windscreen, and I'm pretty sure this is because the sound waves are hitting the back of the tweeter pod that is mounted on the pillars and causing a cancellation, and it's probably not going to respond to EQ work anyway. So I can either live with some big gaps in my response, or I can maybe drop the target level down to try to minimize the size of that gap. But the trade-off is, of course, is I'm going to lose some volume or dynamic response from my speakers, because I'm now going to have to cut more volume out. So, it is a compromise. But luckily for me, I know that because those mids are in the location that they are, a lot of this volume is free energy from corner loading, and I also know that my amplifier's plenty of headroom, so that if I need to lift the volume of my speakers after they've been EQ'd, I've got the headroom to do it. So I guess the takeaway in terms of when you're setting target levels, you need to find that sweet spot to come up with the best solutions for you, so that you can get the best tune out of your car, given the response that you're getting from your speakers. Okay, the last topic I want to talk about is EQ and dynamic responsive speakers, that type of stuff. And this plays to the old debate around whether you should use a few EQ bands or a lot of EQ bands. And to be honest, I prefer to use fewer EQ bands than more. I tend to find that my tunes are a little more musical and a little more dynamic when I just tackle the big peaks and dips and leave the others a little bit jaggery. At the same time, I've done a lot of tunes where I've got the response super smooth by using as many EQ bands as I can, and they sound perfectly fine as well. So I don't think there is a magical number of EQ bands that's perfect for any particular response because it depends on a whole bunch of different things. So for example, if I bring up the left mid that we were looking at before, you can see that, first of all, it is a long way from the target curve, and therefore I'm going to have to use a few EQ bands just to get that to match the target level. If I compare that, for example, to this left tweeter measure, and we do the same thing, you can see that the response of the speaker is much closer matching than the mid-range driver that we were just looking at. And so logically this is going to take fewer EQ bands to EQ than the mid driver that we were looking at over here, right? So the first factor that impacts the number of EQ bands that we will use is how well does the response of the speaker match the target curve before you do your EQ work. The second thing that will affect your number of EQ bands that you use is going to be the resolution that you're working in. So if you're working in 1/24th, we've talked about this before, REW is going to try to use a lot of EQ bands to smooth that out compared to if you were working in 1/3, right? Now that dynamic detail is not lost; it's still there. It's just the way that the response is displayed in terms of smoothing. So you can effectively EQ all of this stuff, but all of those little jaggery bits, so to speak, are preserved under the surface, right? So this whole topic of EQ, do I use a lot? Do I use a little? How many EQ bands is perfect? The short answer is I don't think there is an answer to that particular question. My advice would be to go and try some tunes. Go do a tune with as few EQ bands as you can use. Go do a tune where you EQ everything as flat as possible. Listen to them yourselves, see if you can hear a difference, and work out what works best for you. So guys, I think that brings us to the end of this viewer's question tutorial. As I said, I will go back and make a tutorial on measurement levels and all that type of stuff. That seems to be something that is a bit of a gap in this tutorial series, so I will go and do that for Henri. I hope this answered a lot of the questions that you raised in the comment. But thanks again, mate. Thank you very much for posting that. It's helped me really think about how I might do future videos and make them better. So I appreciate the feedback. Otherwise, guys, I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to catching you in the next episode.